This painting has two layers. One is white with red and blue and some pearl white here. And that was the part that was created at the time when Ernesto was still alive. And then towards the end of his life I started painting it black, but that process was extraordinarily slow. My energy was going down, I was exhausted, and I broke my hand, and a few days after that happened, Ernesto died. And when he died, I had to slow down drastically. I had to take some time to rest and to get back to my senses. So it took me almost a month just to paint everything black. I don't like to think that this is just a video. I'm gonna call it a life episode, because that's what my paintings are. Each and every single one of them is an episode of life. And this one behind me, I created in order to honor the life of my spider, Ernesto. And this video is an accompanying material to this painting, or an extension of a painting. And both video and the painting I devote to people who are afraid of spiders and to people who love spiders. But I also believe that people who are afraid of any other animal, including humans, could benefit from watching or listening. I want to tell you what I learned from my spiders, and I want to tell you how I learned it, so that if you're afraid of spiders, so that you can also do yourself a favor and disillusion yourself. Last year I had one of these worst case scenarios with a spider. I found a spider in my bed. After that I lived 6 months in a close proximity to another spider that I was very afraid of. And what I concluded from both of those experiences was that my fear of spiders was actually fears and discomforts that were generally present throughout my entire life in different aspects, that were just being mirrored or triggered or symbolized by spiders. When it comes to symbolism, I believe that there is as many symbols as there are people on the planet. I also believe that studying and researching symbolism can be very useful in deeply understanding the fabric of your connection to spiders. But while it might be very useful and you might get a lot of insights, a lot of information you come across might have nothing to do with you, especially if you have very unique experience that shaped your fear of spiders. So if you have any intention, desire, or willingness or openness to get over the fear of spiders, then I would advise you to find your own spider, or allow a spider to find you. And while being close to the spider, pay attention to how you feel in your body, what type of emotions and feelings and sensations you get where. Pay attention to what thoughts, conclusions, memories, or beliefs are happening in your head. And notice what happened prior to meeting a spider and what happens as a result of meeting a spider. Pay attention also to what is happening in your life in general at the time when you have a spider present in it. If you have a particularly strong reaction to a spider, whether is it a fear, shock, or disgust, and you want to go even deeper, then try to imagine yourself from a perspective of somebody who loves you. What would their response be to your reaction? Or try to imagine yourself from the perspective of 30 years older version of yourself. What would they say to you? Or try to see yourself from a perspective of a 7-year-old. How would they respond to your reaction? And through the entire process, learn from yourself. In other words, find your own meanings and find your own symbols. For those of you who are a little bit on edge because you don't like anthropomorphism, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later down the line. But first I want to start with some darkness. On April 23rd, 2024, I woke up in the morning and one of the first things that I saw when I opened my eyes was something like this, 4 centimeters approximately, big black spider on my bed next to my pillow. I don't have a picture of it. I believe it could have been Tecnaria domestica, which In the past 10 years since I live on this part of the planet, I've seen that spider 3 times, and the 4th time was in my bed. That's how unlikely these encounters are. I screamed. I jumped out of the bed. I cried. I had a panic attack as I watched this spider move from my pillow around my phone and going under another pillow on the other side of the bed. And when I moved that other pillow, the spider wasn't there anymore. The spider was black. The bed sheet was black. The blanket was black. The wall decoration was black. The storage near the bed was black. It could have been anywhere, and that was not unsettling. That was deeply terrifying. I was in shock. I called some of my friends to come and save me. They were busy, so I spent the rest of my day paralyzed. Eventually, towards the end of the day, I got this brilliant idea that I can just hire somebody to come and save me from the spider, which is what I did. But before I was even able to think about any possible solution, I had to calm the fuck down. The goal of this living nightmare was that I was able to observe and witness for myself. How do I react? How do I respond? And how do I calm down when my stress is on level 9,000? And when I'm face to face with the biggest fear of my life. And what I noticed was that in order to calm down, I went straight into a coping mechanism that I had several years ago when I was in a situation that was very deeply distressing. It was very intense and overwhelming. It was destructive. It was transformative eventually. But at the time when I found myself in it, I wasn't ready for it. I didn't have social skills and abilities to properly address the situation. I didn't have prior life experience that would adequately prepare me for what I was getting into, and I also didn't have emotional capacity to be present with myself while going through that experience. So I distracted myself with that coping mechanism. Eventually, I also removed myself from the situation, and I trained myself to be able to deal with it when and if it happens again. But as I removed myself, I remained living in this underlying anxiety that the situation will come back around again, either that or something similar, and will find me in a moment when I'm not ready for it again. There was this fear that it will happen again in the most unexpected way, in the most unexpected place, in the most unexpected time, just like the spider from the underworld showed up in my bed one morning when I woke up. And when it comes to fear of spiders, that's how I lived, on constant alert. When I would go to visit my childhood home, my dad would always have to come into the house first to make sure that all the spiders are out so that I can feel free to come in. And even then I would still be on alert just in case he missed some of them. And when I would go to another country where I'd never been before, I would make a research about what type of spiders they have there, just so I can be sure what to expect. That was not a pleasant way to live. But now, thanks to the spider that showed up in my bed, I was able to become aware of this coping mechanism that was revolving around, not just around the spider, but also around this situation that I was afraid that it will come back around before I'm ready for it. And now I was looking at not just one but 2 fears on the same bandwidth, both equally intense, equally active and present within my energy field. And being aware of them simultaneously kind of cancelled each other. When I went to calm myself down from the spider that was in the bed with this coping mechanism, I remembered that I used the same coping mechanism at the time when I was dealing with this situation. So I remembered the situation and I thought about it. And while I was thinking about the situation, I forgot about the spider being in my bed. The spider wasn't so scary anymore. And after I had that experience of waking up to a spider and having a full-blown panic attack, after that, thinking about the situation wasn't so scary either. Up until that point, I was fully aware that I was afraid of spiders, and I was fully aware that I was afraid of this situation coming back around before I'm strong enough, before I'm equipped in order to deal with it. But I wasn't fully aware of how exactly did these fears dictate my behaviors. And that was the first step of understanding the fear of spiders on a deeper level. It doesn't end here though. I still had to hire somebody to come and save me from the spider, because the idea that I could take a cup and a piece of paper and use my own hands to come close to that animal and to move it outside was unacceptable to me. And then, a few months later, in August 2024, another spider moved in. He was 1 centimeter big, with round abdomen and round legs, and he was super cute. I was quite impressed with how much space it took. It took around 1 square meter of my window. The web was attached to the curtain, which meant that from that day on, I wasn't able to move the curtain anymore. The spider was European garden spider. It was one of the few spiders that I was actually able to identify because it was quite common in Central Europe, in all the places where I lived in. And it was also the most common spider that my dad always had to save me from. It is brown, it has stripes on his legs, and it has a cross on the back of its abdomen. He moved in at a time when I was obsessed with hurricanes and tornadoes. I had a phase in which I spent all my time watching all things storm-related, and what you see in the background is a painting named Two Tornadoes Built Differently that I painted at the time. So consequently, I named him after the hurricane that was active in Atlantic at the time, which was Hurricane Ernesto. Now before we move on, I want to shortly talk about something important, and that is Ernesto's pronouns. When he moved in from the first day, I considered him to be a male spider. I don't know, that was just the impression that I got from him. Maybe I was also influenced by the fact that the word spider in my mother tongue, pauk, is a male noun, so it's easy to talk about spiders as if they're all male. However, during the researches I later did about spiders, from one information source I found out that only female spiders live in a way that Ernesto lived, and that was to build a round web and spend most of the time not moving away from it. Female spiders spend most of their times in their web waiting for the male spiders to come and get them, or for them to get them. Apparently, male spiders don't build webs. They freely wander around and are significantly smaller. And there was in fact one smaller spider that was sometimes visiting Ernesto and tried to get his attention. So I concluded that that must be the male spider and Ernesto must be the female. But later, from another information source, I found a video that clearly indicates male and female spiders, where male spiders look like Ernesto, while female spiders have very much larger and rounder abdomens. So therefore, Ernesto was male. In my world, he was a male spider living like a queen, representing all aspects of divinity in himself. He was a divine feminine and divine masculine all in one. If Ernesto had human mind to decide upon his pronouns, I assume he would be non-binary queer spider that had right to be whatever they wanted to be, and I respect that. If I have to advocate for him, there was no wrong pronouns, so I called him he. He was too cute and too small to be threatening. He was so cute. And he was cute for a week. And then he molted. As he molted, he came out of his exoskeleton 2 to 3 times larger than he was before. I was shocked. Because now he was a big spider I was afraid of. If he would have moved in as that version of himself, I would make sure that he's outside and not Ernesto. But now I already claimed him as a pet, so to kick him out just didn't feel right. I had no other option but to face my fears. And that was the first time that I was afraid of Ernesto. I was afraid that he will jump onto me. I was afraid that he will unpredictably start running very fast, like a huntsman, and hide somewhere where I can't reach him. I was afraid that he will relocate his web every day and that I will wake up one day again and see him hanging above my head or being in my bed like the other spider. I was afraid that I will have to live on alert all the time because of not knowing where he might be. I was afraid that he will have children In fact, 600 of them. All of those fears came from not knowing anything about him. I had no clear idea about what to expect from him, what's his lifestyle, what's his usual behavior, and so on. All of these fears were projected onto him from my very little knowledge. So every question and every concern I had, I Googled. I was determined to learn and research all that I can, specifically about European garden spiders, and then more about spiders in general. And as I was learning more and more, while simultaneously had this wonderful opportunity to observe the daily life of Ernesto, I became less afraid. My fears were replaced by curiosity and openness to learn, and then by relief of knowing what is actually likely to be expected of him. All the fears I had, I can put into 3 categories: fear of unknown, fear of uncertainty, and fear of unpredictability. All those fears were present in my life in general. At that particular time of life, a bit more than ever before. But you see, not everything was always about fears only. At least not at that point. Right from the start, when Ernesto moved in, I noticed how strongly independent he is. That's something we had in common. Sometimes we were very synchronized. There was a time when I was very busy with painting and playing music and organizing exhibitions and traveling and working and exercising. I was very active, and Ernesto was equally so, rebuilding his web on a daily basis, because his web would always be full of flies at the end of the day. That was his spider business. And then there were also days when I would just stay lying in bed for a day or two just to rest and recover. And on the same days, Ernesto would stay in his safe space and not care about the web. I saw him as independent, creative, individualistic, bold, brave, confident, responsible, fully authentic, and in full control over his life. He didn't really need me. I did recognize myself in him. And I know I'm projecting. But if somebody would have told me 10, 15, or 20 years ago that my fear of spiders is actually fear of being fully independent, in control of all of the aspects of my life, fully authentic, individualistic, and everything else I've seen in the spider, they would be onto something. Right now, the spider and I are on the same page. But that definitely wasn't the case when I was younger, especially not when I was a child. In fact, up until a few years ago, all of this was, although desirable, quite scary. Ernesto was also very patient, which was very inspiring at times when I practiced meditation. If I had to stay fully still and not move my body, looking at Ernesto made it easier because he was able to be still and not move, sometimes more than 24 hours. Sometimes he would put a leg in an unusual position and stay like this for a day, or until I would come and ask if he's okay. Then he would react to my voice and give a sign of life. While doing the research about Ernesto, I found out that spiders have blue blood. And I found it fascinating, honestly, that in this one ecosystem, in this one living space, there are 2 beings. One that has blue blood and one that has red blood. If you don't know anything about red and blue, then I would kindly ask you to find my Instagram art profile and follow me there. Or as my university professors would say, read my book. While doing the research about him, I found out that Ernesto was blind, or had very poor vision, but instead was able to hear everything I say or do through his web. His web was like an external eardrum, which I found really cool. I believed he was able to perceive positive words directed at him, so I often talked to him in a very loving way. But now, let's go back into the fears. One thing I found particularly creepy about spiders was the way they move their legs. They use hydrostatic pressure to extend their legs and muscles to flex them. They're able to control their heart rate to control hydrostatic pressure. And the faster the heartbeat, the more force is produced due to the higher hydrostatic pressure. And while researching the symbolism of spiders, I found the holistic healer Jordana Van, who translated the hydrostatic system as need to follow your heart and need to follow your joy in order to move forward in life. For a second I was puzzled and I thought, how can this be creepy? But you see, here's the problem with this. If you come from a place of the planet, or from another planet, where you've been told or thought that what makes you happy doesn't pay the bills, or if you believe that you must do something you don't like simply because you believe that that's the way money works for you, even if you were in situations where you were silenced or stopped by people close to you, or humiliated, put down, bullied, excluded, or in any other way attacked for being happy or doing something that was bringing you joy, then when somebody says, just do what makes you happy, or follow your joy, or follow your bliss, that doesn't come so easily, you see. It can be quite scary. Terrifying even. To first and foremost know exactly what it is that makes you happy. And then to dare to follow that happiness can seem dangerous. Allowing yourself to be happy and to do what your heart wants you to do can be a lifelong lesson for some, and can take equally as long as resolving a fear of spiders. Lastly, and I think this was the biggest discomfort I found in spiders, is transformation. To me personally, spiders symbolize total transformation. Spiders molt. They completely shed the outside layer of their existence, and they come out bigger and different. Not necessarily stronger at first. In fact, they come out very sensitive and very vulnerable. They must have sort of perfect circumstances to molt. If they don't have enough moisture, they can get stuck in their molt and lose a leg. Worst case, they can die. And you see, the same goes for us. We organically transform in our lives and we go from a cycle to cycle, but no matter how many times we did it already, it can still be quite scary. Especially when we need to choose transformation deliberately and put effort and willingness, openness and discipline in order to shed the old layers of ourselves. Going through changes and becoming the next bigger version of our life comes with losing something, just like spiders lose their legs. It comes with losing beliefs, values, standards, habits, preferences, activities, places, and people. People that we love and people that love us for the versions of ourselves that we're outgrowing. And that's painful and scary. My younger self, the one who was terribly afraid of spiders, understands that fear very deeply. Every time when the nest molted, his behavior completely changed. After the first molt, he was very confident, not afraid of birds, not afraid of the camera, ever present on the web during the day and during the night. Didn't mind about sun, didn't mind about light, didn't mind about people, noise. He was sitting in the middle of the web with his big dick energy, very attractive to the fruit flies. Then after the second molt, he became a bit more protective over himself. He started hiding in his safe space whenever the lights were on or the sun was out or the visitors were here. And he would run even if I tried to come closer with the camera, which previously was totally fine. Eventually, he came out into the web only if the room was in complete darkness, with exception of red light. Another perspective on the fear of spiders I found in the book Journey in Spectral Consciousness, written by Frederick Dodson. It's been a while since I listened to the audiobook, so it can be that I don't say exactly how it's written, but basically it says that the reason why people find spiders and insects so repulsive, scary, or even disgusting is because they are low vibrational beings. And their low frequency can lower our frequency, all happening on a subconscious level, of course. But equally so, as they can lower our frequency, we can raise their frequency by showing them love and care. This way they can get familiar with higher frequency, and after they transition from their current physical bodies, they can choose a high vibrational life form in their next incarnation. I took that seriously, and I told to Ernesto every single day that I love him. I believe that this spider, just like the spider that showed up in my bed, came with the purpose of making me aware of my fears and transmute them. I was deeply grateful to both of them, especially to Ernesto, for making me go through this process of disillusionment. My whole body, my nervous system relaxed when I found ease and curiosity and interest and even joy in interacting with spiders. Life became so much easier. And while Ernesto was still alive, I knew that I don't want to live without a spider again. Not just that it was interesting, it balanced me and the whole atmosphere of my apartment. Technically, he died because there was no more flies in the winter. And trust me, I tried to get him flies from elsewhere, but it didn't work out. But I thought that he died because he fulfilled the purpose of his existence. I also thought that because I loved him so much, that his vibrational frequency was too high to be a spider. I believe that my experiences with both of those spiders prepared me for being right here, right now, talking to you, while I'm being in the presence of my avicularia. I used to have a thrill from looking at spiders. Some of them, not all of them, were very beautiful to me. They were very pretty, but they also represented danger. So there was a thrill when I looked at them, especially Ernesto, because he was in my captivity. And I thought I'm gonna have the same thrill from owning a tarantula, but after doing all this fear transmutation, I landed in a space where I just feel peace and calm and appreciation and respect for that animal. It's the same like with humans, you know, you meet somebody you feel attracted to and you get a bit nervous and you get anxious and you don't know what to say and you have butterflies in your stomach and you believe that this must be love. Well, it's actually fear-based. If you ask me if you can be friends with spiders, I would say yes, you can. But they're not going to be like cats and dogs. They're not going to show you affection. They're not going to beg for your attention. They're not going to walk around you and wait for you to love them. In fact, spiders are like some toxic people. They don't really give you much except their own existence and the value that you assign and project onto them. But that doesn't mean that you can't have loving and meaningful and fulfilling connection to them. However, deep introspection with symbolism and projections and personifications and so on, everything must be done with boundaries. Anthropomorphism, or attributing human characteristics, human feelings, human emotions, human thoughts, human intentions, human ideas, onto non-human beings, in this case, spiders, can put spiders in danger. You might be completely lost in your own feelings, in your ideas, in your imagination, in your projections, in your ideas on how to film spiders and put them to TikTok and so on. And in that process, you might overlook, forget to think, or completely neglect needs of the spider. Each type of spiders have their own needs. Some of them need you to feed them, to give them water, to check the levels of humidity in their enclosure. Some of them need darkness, and most of them need the absence of you. They need you to leave them alone. those of you who are psychically, energetically, or spiritually tuned in, your spider might actually be an alien that came down on Earth to tell you about the future of humanity, or to give you a new frequency of music, or to give you an idea of how to invent a new color that doesn't exist on the planet yet. And you might be completely unable to receive that information because you're lost in your mind. So all the projections and personifications and introspection must be done within your own frame. You must give space and grace to spiders to be spiders. Same like for humans, you have to give them space and grace to be who they are, to show you who they are. And you have to learn at some point in life how to really see them for who they really are, and not for what you would like them to be. And also, do the research. There are plenty of apps and places online where you can take a photo, post a photo, let somebody else identify the spider for you, so that then you can do the research and educate yourself about your new friend. Speaking of friendships, I had some really beautiful, friendly experiences with my spider Ernesto. My drum set was positioned partly directly under the web, and the first time Ernesto installed the web, he attached one of the strings to the crush symbol. I removed that string because I didn't want to disturb him while playing, and I put it onto the electricity cord. But over time he attached the string back to the symbol. So I just let it be there. And what I noticed is that every time when I was playing drums, Ernesto would come out of his safe space and start walking all over the place. He went into the net, over the net to the ceiling, all the way down to the floor, and eventually he would come directly in front of me, above the drums. There he would stay and he would sway with the rhythm. And he would be there as long as I played. I noticed that he would come out from the web every time when I played Dead Memories from Slipknot, which is usually my warm-up song. And if I started by playing any other song, or if I improvised, or if I played some exercise, it would take him a little bit longer to come out, but with Dead Memories he would come out instantly, which tells me that Dead Memories was his favorite song. I mean, he has a cross on his back. Of course he likes Slipknot. But I also thought that maybe the drum part of Dead Memories actually has some spider codes that they use to invite each other out to mate or something like that. If you have a spider near your drums, or drums near your spider, please play Dead Memories and see how they respond. I'm really curious whether there is some universal spider language in that song. And let me know down in the comments. Playing drums while having a big spider as a loyal audience was an experience I never thought I will have. I never wanted it. But once when I had it, it was simply precious and priceless. I don't think I will ever be able to recreate this experience with any other spider. Once I came home very early in the morning and I saw the full moon in Aries being on the way to position itself right behind Ernesto's web. And Ernesto was at that time still in the center of his web. This was already at a time when he would be in the web only during the dark, so I knew that he will move into his safe space very soon. So I told him that the moon is on the way behind him and that I would love to take the photo of the two of them together. But as I said that, he moved straight into his safe space, which was a bit sad because I really wanted to have that photo. So I told him, please, Ernesto, I really want to have that photo. And he didn't really care. So I went minding my own business, and 15 minutes later, I looked up and I saw Ernesto in the middle of the web, while the full moon in Aries was right behind the web. And I took a camera, I made some photos and videos, and when I had enough, I said, "Thank you, Ernesto." And as I said that, literally the second after I pronounced it, he walked back into his safe space. And I was crying tears of joy. When Ernesto died, I gave him 3 days of grace, just in case he wants to get back into his body and keep living. But he didn't. His body fell onto the floor, and at first I didn't want to touch. But eventually I took a piece of metal and a paintbrush and I scooped him so that I can move him into the grave that I created for him under the Tree of Life plant. And while touching his body, even just with a paintbrush, I felt such powerful buzzing of love coming off of his body. It was quite a surreal feeling. And afterwards, I decided to touch his web now that it was empty. Previously, I never touched the web. Only that one time when I moved the string. But this time, as soon as I touched the web with my fingers, my heart was so open. I felt so much love and joy flowing to me and through me and from me, just from touching the web. I did it the next day again, and I had the same experience. So instead of cleaning the web and removing it, I decided to put it onto this painting. And with Ernesto's web captured in it, I hope this painting lasts forever.